Welcome. Pichu Day. Welcome to June. Um, so I thought we could have a serious conversation about how lightning changed my life. Now, this is probably one of the weirdest things that has happened to me. And I want to talk about it now when I'm not highly ticky because there's a lot of things that really have to be broken down in this to really get into. And it's hard when I'm ticking every few words or when I'm having at least eye ticks or stuff every few seconds. There are times when I don't tick for multiple minutes, hours, and my chest is definitely like some days really calm and some days really not. So I thought I would go into this just a little bit with the right attitude in mind. Now, June 14th, 2023 was an insane day. So the day started with getting up when I was staying with my mom in the mountains. And at this point, I was not diagnosed yet with the Tourette's. I knew that I had all these issues. I knew that there were weird things about me. I knew I blurted out weird and sporadic things that did not make sense. I knew I had spasms and physical tics, but I did not have answers from doctors yet. I was late to try to get diagnosed. I did not really start talking to doctors and pushing to find out what was going on with this stuff until I would say late 30s is when I really started trying to get answers. Most of the time I just hid from people. So I really was the queen of suppression to the point that I was actually making myself physically sick for decades. These are the things that I've found out with the doctors. Once I stopped suppressing as much, once I got fully diagnosed, once I started just embracing what I am and not hiding myself in rooms away from people for anywhere from hours to days, weeks, months. Worst time when I could not get myself under control, I was away from people for the majority of 4 years, except for part-time with my husband. And even he couldn't figure out what was going on with me then. So this was a tumultuous time for me in a lot of ways. And I know that I had random outbursts, that I had things I said and did as a child that didn't make sense. I know I had all these issues, but I did not have a context to them yet. So we fast forward. And in my late 30s, as I started interacting more with people with different tic conditions, including Tourette's, started interacting with doctors more on the seizure damage I went through as a child and other stuff that I've been through medically, started looking more at the way that my dad had been and the way he communicated with people and some of the weird and sporadic things that he did that didn't make sense that he swore up and down he never did. And I decided it was time that I start getting answers. So it was in 22 that I started talking to doctors. And we needed assessments and we needed information and we needed to figure out what I had or why I was having all these outbursts and what was really happening to me. Wow! And we needed clear answers. We needed to understand. We needed closure because it had really caused a lot of problems with me and my family, with me and my siblings saying I did things that I wasn't always aware of, my siblings saying I said things that I never meant to say that. How would I say that? And everything was so confusing. And I can remember standing in my room alone, blurting things out and spasming while I'm just trying to find a book to read. And nothing made sense. Nothing made sense. And so I started digging into this. Now, I was going through things with the doctors, and it was really difficult because I was so adamantly suppressing. I had trained myself very young to suppress. And so I would suppress to the point of migraines, nerve pain, dizziness, passing out, stressing my anemia, everything. Wow, everything else. I was suppressing to the point I was making myself sick. And I didn't realize how many outbursts and how much issues I was still having until I started streaming, until I started going on videos with people and I started seeing things that didn't add up, that I thought I didn't do, that I thought I'd kept in, that I thought weren't happening on the videos. So we started talking to them. I did not get a lot assessed or dealt with in 22. And in 22, they all said Parkinson's, which now I've got doctors saying I don't. Now I've got doctors saying I might. That one is so up in the air at this point. It's been diagnosed, undiagnosed, re-diagnosed, and now none of the doctors agree, and we don't know. So we're fighting with that one, and we're trying to figure things out. But they started saying, this isn't just tremors. There's more that doesn't add up. There's more that's not normal. We need to dig deeper. About time that happens, I get up on the 14th of June. Wow! I have family in a neighboring town. And when I say neighboring town, I'm staying at my mom's place in the mountains. So I'm talking about go over a couple mountain passes and through a valley and all this stuff just to get to a small town nearby so I can visit family and hit any stores. There's nothing in my mom's town. Nothing. So, okay. Got it. We can do this. We head out that morning. My mom takes her car. I take mine because we both have a lot to get done. A lot. We both go over to my aunt's place and we spend some time getting food to family members who are in more poverty situations, more of the tribal struggles, helping out people, going around dealing with different family members and their medical. And I would make them muscle creams and stuff like that for their health, teas for them to drink. And we spent a while that morning taking these around to people and helping people who didn't have the resources to get it for themselves. This is a kind of normal thing for me and my mom to do, so pretty normal. Wow. And so me and my mom, crazy old bitch, parted ways after doing all these errands, and she headed home, and I took my cameras and I headed into the mountains to go see some animals, to go get some photos, to go get some videos, to go spend some time in nature. Wow. To those who don't understand the context of this, I am a nature photographer. I work tracking animals, taking photos of them, helping with conservation issues. I have a private anonymous email I use for reporting in number of eagles, any animals getting injured, to helping track poachers, protect the endangered swan varieties. I spend a lot of time out in nature, finding animals, tracking animals, photographing them, reporting it on how they're doing to DNR and to animal resources, depending on where I am. This is what I do. And so I wanted to go into the mountains and take pictures because where I live is flatlands right now, but I grew up in the mountains. I love the mountains and I love mountain animals. So I went out, just me, in my little car, and I took off into the mountains. Hours later, I'm heading back towards my mother's place, and I've been in the mountains the entire time. It's getting later in the evening, and I'm driving through a state park along the prairie dog holes. And I see something on top of the prairie dog hole that was not a prairie dog. It was an adolescent badger. So I pull over. I very carefully make sure there's a ravine between us, and I stay inside the car with the windows down and start photographing and recording him. Now, the reason I do this is A, they can move quite quickly. They are extremely aggressive, very violent, and very strong. They also are quite good climbers. They've got freaking claws almost like grizzlies, I'm not going to have it get in my car. If push comes to shove, I'm going to gas the hell out of there before I can get to my car, because it was not far from the road. So being a little responsible, because I've had some encounters with badgers in my life, and no, they're not one you want to mess around with. So I'm sitting there and I'm taking pictures and I'm taking little video clips, and wow! And I got one of my favorite video clips that day, which was the badger was acting almost like he was showing off to me. He was really docile, which was weird. And he kept moving and shifting and kind of almost like posing. And I was having a blast. Wow. And he started to turn around on top of the prairie dog hole, and you could see the ground crack. And this is on video, and it's on my other channel. The ground cracked under him, and he fell through that prairie dog hole. Poof, he was gone. And wow, boop, boop. I watched for a few minutes to see what happened, and he didn't come back out. Now, odds are he fell through the hole, saw the prairie dogs, had lunch, and then stayed for a while. That's the odds of what happened. But after a few minutes, I left because it was getting quite cloudy and quite dark. It was getting close to nighttime. So I head out. I go through the park, I come out to the highway, and I head towards the first town where I was visiting family, and then I head from there to my mom's place. As I'm going through that town, and as I'm going through all this stuff, it is starting to storm. It's starting to rain. It is starting to get nasty. It's close to sunset, and I'm hauling ass to get back to my mom's place, because the rain and the storms and the lightning and all that are not supposed to break until sometime midday the next day. And those mountain passes are treacherous during these kinds of storms and really dangerous when there's lightning. It's also an extremely high area for hail, and we're not talking itty bitty hail. Hail there is often massive car braking shit. So I hauled ass to get back to my mom's place, knowing that she's got a carport. She can pull her car forward. I will park behind her. We will be under the carport. The cars will be protected. Logic. Be smart, you know? So, wow. I go back to my mom's place, and I get there, and it's still only off and on rain. It's still bits of lightning and stuff, but it's pretty nasty. I go in, I talk to her, I get her car keys, I get this stuff. Me and my husband go out to the carport. We shift her car forward, shift our car forward, and we can see it just start pouring and hailing, and there's lightning everywhere. And we're under the carport at this time. I am standing by the front of our car, and between me and the end of the carport that faces the road is my husband. As we're doing this and we're finishing up and we're making sure the car's in all the way and we're getting the keys and heading back in, the lightning strikes the street just at the end of my mom's driveway. And it struck it hard. And it went wow, bang, and somehow arced around my husband and hit and hit me in my right leg. I have this nice leathery patch ever since then that's like hard. That's about hand size on my leg. It was storming so bad it was unsafe to leave. I collapsed. All I said was honey and leaned against the car. At this point, I was so stunned by the lightning that my brain had completely disassociated everything that happened. I was unaware for about 3 hours that I'd actually been struck, because my brain had disassociated so much and my body was in such an electric shock that I was numb and barely awake. And my leg hurt. And what I assumed had happened while I was in this dizzy, disoriented state was that The electricity from the ground must have shocked me because I was only in my socks. Because we're moving the cars and I'd taken the shoes off because I was having foot pain. Okay, it shocked the bottom of my foot because my foot touched the wet ground, whatever, Logical assessment when your brain's not functioning well. My husband was aware that it struck me, but he was completely lost on it. He didn't know what to do. My mom was completely lost on it because there was no safe way to get me to a doctor or hospital. There's no doctor or hospital for almost an hour. And it's multiple mountain passes through these storms with the hail and the lightning and possible tornadoes and stuff to get to the hospital. So we weighed our options and we watched me closely. And we stayed in my mother's house. And I never did go to a doctor for the lightning, which still has been a contention with doctors I've dealt with since, because there's some of them are convinced that I couldn't have been struck or I would have gone to get help. There was no way to get help. We're in the middle of nowhere. There was nowhere. And any attempts to get help would have been more dangerous than staying where I was. So, we rested me for a few hours and they watched over me and they kept tracking me, and I seemed to be stabilizing, and it didn't seem to be affecting the heart, the nervous center up here, and it didn't seem to be affecting the way my seizure issues from growing up worked. So we said, well, I'll just talk to doctors about it next time I'm visiting them, and I'll work it into the stuff they have to look into. But it's no big deal. It's no big deal. We're okay. It was just a shock to the leg. I'll be fine. That was about time we were all well aware that the lightning had actually hit my leg. And we just decided, let's just go with it. Okay? After all, what's it going to do, right? Okay. Wow. Now, it was dealing with doctors, dealing with specialists over the next year and a half from there, where I learned so much about what lightning actually does. And it does not instantly change everything about you that it's going to affect you. The symptoms of your neurological net rewiring itself and reprogramming itself can continue for long periods of time. I did not fully process all this. I did not fully have all the symptoms from the lightning strike fully show, fully come out, fully become a part of me for over a year. But during that year, my ticking, my nerve issues, and my spasms were getting worse. So I went to neurologists and I went to specialists and went through neuromuscular testing, neurological testing, and all this other stuff. And lo and behold, after quite a few appointments and quite a few treatments and quite a few all this stuff, going back and forth to figure out what's wrong with me, I get fully diagnosed with the Tourette's. Doctors are still debating back and forth on stuff, but I also get pissed at the place that did it because of two issues. One, they absolutely ignored me and ran tests that are not medically suggested by the MDA for some of the things they were investigating on me, which is another long story I've gone into on my other channel, but it's complicated. I grew up in a family where my dad had multiple forms of muscular dystrophy, and I do have neuromuscular conditions that I inherited from him, and they're still not sure what all of them are. Some of them, they're saying they have never found these traits, and they don't match with any of the known conditions. So there's still a lot of a battle I'm still having with that experience. But this test it's not recommended by MDA, and it's based on electroshocks. And I told them, look, I was struck by lightning. Here's the scar. Is this going to affect? Because I'm more sensitive to electricity now. And they absolutely blew me. Wow. They absolutely blew me off. They kept going, "Oh, you're fine. It's fine. This doesn't have any negative side effects." It's like, okay, everything can have negative side effects. Everything can have negative side effects. So this was a weird statement. Here's juice for them to be making. And it just didn't seem right. It didn't feel right. It didn't sit right with me. And so I went, okay. Okay. If you're positive this is air, I want safety in this. If it's causing problems, you stop. Oh, of course. We're not going to keep going if you're uncomfortable, if you want us to stop. They ignored me. The moment they started to do this, every part of my body that was hurting when I got struck by lightning was getting worse and worse. It was agony. I felt like I was on fire. My muscles were screaming. They were spasming. They were twitching. Something was seriously wrong. They wouldn't listen. They blew me off over and over. Oh, you're fine. You're fine. There's no serious side effects to these tests. These tests don't have side effects. That's a lie. And I've done my research on those tests, and there's actually a lot of serious side effects that many people have had on them. They flat out lied to me about this all the way through these tests. And when they finally finished and stopped doing it, and I tried to tell them, I'm disoriented. My head hurts. My muscles are spasming violently. I cannot control my body. Something is wrong. They literally went, oh, you're fine. There's no side effects, and pushed me out the door. Big issue. Now, this was not the same medical team that diagnosed the Tourette's. This was a separate part of that facility. But there's one other thing that was done during this too. And this is one that's a little more controversial issue that I've found out has been an issue for many more people besides just me. I have a documented form of albino condition. It is a mild albinism. Wow. And it is it makes me look like the ultimate white chick. I am a card-carrying member of the Oglala Sioux tribe. I am Lakota. My dad was a dark-skinned Lakota man. And my albinism and all my eye and skin and hair conditions related to that are in my medical charts. My ID card on file with this clinic is my tribal ID. Wow. They changed my document to say that I was white. They changed what it said racially to mark from not willing to answer to white, which is absolutely illegal thing to do. This was also, by the way, wow, done to my dad when he passed away. It was years later, more recently with my mom, that I discovered that while my dad's body was waiting to be picked up by the tribe for tribal rites and funeral, she found out the hospital had changed him from not answering to white. He was a dark-skinned Native man whose body was being retrieved for last rites by the tribe, and they changed his death papers to say he was white. This is not okay. I've been talking to a lot of people I know in the tribes, and apparently a lot of people have had issues with hospitals that aren't IHS changing their racial status to white. So this is something I'm still looking into, delving into, and exploring, but it is something I very likely will take legal action on, because You do not change people's racial information on their documentation. Besides the absolute racist implications of it, there are medical conditions that are more prone to certain cultures and certain races that could be harder to find if you do that. So this is not okay for many reasons. And I told my doctor after that appointment that I will not go back to that clinic. So I have, wow, the papers in my purse that have me diagnosed as having Tourette's, that reference me being albino and still call me white. That does actually still anger me. So back to why the lightning became my ultimate gift in the end. By the time the symptoms of the lightning stabilized and I was no longer having my neurological system change from day to day to day, it stabilized with me ticking much more overtly, much more obviously, and much louder than I used to. Wow! It also, eat a dick, stabilized. It also stabilized. Wow, I just lost my train of thought a sec. I'm sorry. Wow. It also stabilized with me not being able to suppress the tics anymore. It took away that mask. It took away that ability to suppress. I can't hide what the tics do to me anymore. And so I look into that. I look into the situations, and now we've got it going on. Gotcha. Okay. I can't suppress anymore. Within a few months of not suppressing, I realized that almost all my nerve pain's gone, that almost all of my constant migraines are gone, and that a lot of my eye pain and my struggles with my vision were not as bad either. Because this was causing such stress to my body, it was causing such severe headaches, it was actually making my eyes blurry. So now I can't hide it. I can't pretend that I don't tick. I can't pretend that I'm not going to have these ticky moments, but wow, I can say that I'm not in constant pain to the level I was anymore. I still don't know what it feels like to not be in pain at any moment in my life, but the pain levels have come down significantly since I unsuppressed. And I'm less ashamed of myself. I'm less constantly counteracting myself. And it has helped with fixing that gap between me and my siblings now that they understand why, wow, I was doing the things I was doing as a child. Now that they understand why a lot of those issues existed. So it gave me hope. It gave me light. It gave me the ability to look past what had been done to me and look past my issues and look past my tics and find a connection to people again. It was 5.5 years. Wow. Boom. Since the last time I'd gone to any public venues, any public shows, any public events, when I went to see Drew Lynch in September of 24. The last time I had been to a public show was in Minneapolis in beginning of 2019. And I was assaulted by the drunk behind us. He had decided that it was not okay that I was having moments of spasms and moments of issues, and that I had a mask and was covering my eyes up during the places where the bands used strobe lights. I have a history of seizures. I have albino issues. I have extremely light sensitive eyes with almost no retina. This was absolutely vital for me to do in order to be able to go to a concert. But this drunk decided I was disrespecting the bands. And so he waited till I wasn't paying attention to him. He grabbed me by the back of the head, pulled me backwards violently, and dumped his drink down my face while trying to knock me off my seat. It really, it really messed with me because I was trying so hard to be so safe. And I have post-traumatic issues with things touching me from behind from my childhood. And I got through the show. I responded quite violently to what he did, and that was known by the staff there, but they didn't push anything on it. They did kick him out. They didn't do anything to me for my violent reaction to what he did to me. No charges were pressed on me, and I didn't push it on him. I just wanted him out of the building. But it shook me. And it shook me a lot, and I didn't go anywhere for 5.5 years. Enos juice. When I went to see Drew, I was terrified, but I picked a small venue. I picked a small concert venue. I picked a small comedy club. I made sure we had premium seats. There weren't supposed to be as much in the crowd, all this stuff. That's what we knew. I went with a friend who works as a professional carer and works with people with mental and medical conditions like this. Wow. And we went to the show, and the rest is history. He was so kind to me, but it definitely became a big part of the show that night. And about a month or so later, it became a very big video on his channel, which has a lot of views now. And people, started finding me for having Tourette's, both good and bad. There's fake claimers and there's haters, but there's also light at the end of the tunnel with that. I'm not as scared to go out anymore. And I went to see Drew again at the beginning of March in 25. And he remembered me, and he was friendly to me, and he was kind to me, and he is an amazing comedian. And and a kind man. And I recommend more people to support him. So that is the story that led to this. How a lightning strike in the leg broke my ability to suppress my tics, forced me to stop hurting myself physically to hide what I am, and ultimately helped me get properly diagnosed and finally get answers. This is a very big and a very complicated story. It is a very emotional story, but it is 100% real, and it is who I am. I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed. I know what I am. And I'm amazed every day at how much this has ultimately actually helped me grow as a person. Thank you for being willing to watch what is definitely not a short video, but it is definitely a very important one. Don't be afraid. Wow. Come, senpai. Wow. Don't be afraid to be yourself. Don't suppress what you are. If you've got Tourette's, let your tics out. Suppressing is not good for you mentally, medically, or physically. If you are autistic, stop masking. It does so much harm to you mentally and physically. Be who you are without shame, whatever you are. Be your best you in those conditions. And remember, we love you here. Have a blessed day, and don't do anything but being yourself. Bye.